Isometric games have been around forever, but for a long time they were either tactical RPGs or slower point-and-click adventures. Lately, though, the genre has exploded with everything from lightning-fast action to survival horror and sprawling CRPGs that will eat your entire life. So let's talk about the ones you need to play right now. Hi folks, today on this video, we're breaking down some of the best isometric games you absolutely must play. Starting off the list, it's Tunic. Look, I went into this one expecting a cute little Zelda clone with a fox and a green tunic, and what I got was something way smarter and way more devious. The combat is fine, responsive enough, kind of Souls-light with its stamina and rolling, but that's not the point. The point is the manual. You find pages of this in-game instruction booklet written in a made-up language, and the entire game is about deciphering it through context clues. You'll see a drawing of a secret path or a hint about a hidden button combo, and you have to actually figure it out yourself. No hand-holding, no quest markers telling you where to go. I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out a single puzzle that turned out to be a page from the back of the manual I hadn't even found yet. It is the most satisfying kind of discovery, the kind that makes you feel like a genius for just reading the room. And the isometric perspective is perfect for it, giving you these diorama-like levels where every angle might be hiding something. If you like games that trust you to be curious and patient, Tunic is a genuine treasure. Just be ready to feel kind of dumb sometimes. And up next, we have Jagged Alliance 3. Okay, so the tactical turn-based genre has had a weird revival, but this one is for the sickos who missed the late 90s when games were ugly, hard, and proud of it. You're a mercenary commander hiring a crew of weirdos with distinct personalities, and you have to liberate a country from a warlord. The isometric view gives you perfect control of the battlefield, and the shooting mechanics are surprisingly detailed. Bullets have travel time, cover actually matters, and your mercs will get tired, scared, and injured in ways that feel real. What I love is how each merc has their own voice lines and relationships. Some hate each other, some will refuse to work together. One guy is a total alcoholic who performs worse if he hasn't had a drink, which is insane and I love it. The game is not polished, expect some jank, the interface is kind of a mess, and the load times can drag. But the tactical depth is up there with XCOM, and the sense of improvising when a plan falls apart is unmatched. It is a proper, nasty, smart strategy game that does not care if you're having a good time. And that's exactly why you should play it. So next up, it's V-Rising. Alright, I have put embarrassing hours into this one. You are a vampire, you wake up in a crumbling world, and you have to build a castle, hunt for blood, and survive the daylight. The isometric viewpoint is crucial here because the combat is real-time and action-focused, almost like a top-down Diablo, but with way more weight. Every weapon has a different moveset, and you have to aim your spells and dashes manually. It is so satisfying to land a perfect spear throw or turn into a wolf to escape a losing fight. And the castle building is legitimately great. You can design a whole gothic fortress with coffins, gardens for blood, and servant coffins to raise undead minions. The game launched out of early access in 2024, and it is fully cooked now with a complete campaign, a bunch of endgame bosses, and full PvP servers if you want to raid other people's castles. I mostly played solo, and it still felt huge. The progression from a weak little bat that hides from the sun to a walking death machine with a full castle and an army is one of the best power curves I have seen in years. Even the soundtrack slaps. If you ever wanted a proper vampire simulator that actually lets you feel like Dracula, this is it. Just make sure you have friends, because the boss fights get brutal alone. And coming in next is Project Zomboid. I'm going to be honest, this game is not for everyone. It is for people who think fun means spending 3 hours organizing canned food in a closet while a helicopter attracts a horde of 500 zombies to your front door. The isometric perspective is what makes the tension work, because you can see just far enough to be afraid. The game is a hardcore survival sim, where one scratch can infect you, and you will die. The zombie population is massive, the map is huge, and every system from nutrition to mood to boredom is simulated. You get depressed if you only eat canned beans for a week. You get panicked when you see a zombie and your hands shake, making aiming worse, and the nighttime. Oh man, when it gets dark, you are genuinely blind unless you have a light source, which attracts zombies. There is a massive update that's in testing right now, and it adds animals, crafting overhauls, and new lighting mechanics that make nights even scarier. I have had runs where I survived for months and then died because I opened the wrong door. That is the game. It is brutal, unfair, and slow, but every small victory feels earned. You will not find a better zombie survival sim anywhere. Just be ready to lose everything a lot. Now moving on, we have Wasteland 3. So before Fallout was Fallout, it was Wasteland, and this is the real sequel to that legacy. You lead a squad of desert rangers in post-apocalyptic Colorado, which is frozen instead of a desert, and the tone is this perfect mix of dark humor and genuine horror. The isometric turn-based combat is tight, with cover mechanics, environmental explosions, and a system where you can have vehicles on the battlefield. But what really stuck with me is the music. There is a mission where you have to raid a casino run by a psychotic clown gang, and the game plays an original metal song while you're fighting. It is so absurd and amazing. The choices are brutal. You will have to make decisions that kill entire factions, and the game remembers everything. I sided with a peaceful commune once and later found out I accidentally starved a different settlement because I diverted supplies. It is the kind of RPG where you feel bad no matter what you do. The co-op is also great. You and a friend each control 2 characters and can even go off and do different quests separately. It is not as polished as Baldur's Gate 3, but it has a personality all its own, kind of ugly and mean and hilarious. If you like Fallout but wish it had deeper combat and more actual role-playing, this is the one. And coming in next, we have Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. Okay, on paper, the math behind this giant tabletop simulator sounds like a literal homework assignment, but the payoff of turning your character into a world-destroying lich or a massive golden angel makes every spreadsheet worth it. This is an absolutely massive classic CRPG that respects your intelligence by giving you an overwhelming amount of player freedom and mechanical depth. You are put in charge of a massive crusade against a demonic invasion led by a giant bug god named Discari, and you have to build up an army while managing your core party of companions. The depth of the character creator alone is enough to leave you staring at the screen for 2 hours, featuring dozens of classes and archetypes that let you customize every single stat and feat. The crown jewel of the system is the mythic path mechanic, which completely alters the entire narrative and your mechanical playstyle based on the cosmic entity you choose to become. You can choose to raise a literal army of the undead as a necrotic lich, trick your enemies with cosmic illusions as a trickster, or turn into a raging demon that melts health bars. The tactical combat can be toggled between real-time, with pause, or a structured turn-based grid, which is incredibly helpful when you are trying to untangle a massive room full of high-level succubi and minotaurs. It also includes a crusade management mode where you move armies across a world map like a miniature strategy game. It is a massive commitment that pays off in ways few other RPGs can match. Another one we have here is Baldur's Gate 3. And yeah, you knew this was coming. I don't think I need to tell anyone how good this game is at this point, but I will anyway. Larian took everything they learned from Divinity and applied it to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rules, and somehow made it work perfectly. The isometric camera is your default view, but you can zoom all the way into a third-person, over-the-shoulder angle, and the fact that the game works seamlessly in both is a technical miracle. The freedom is absurd. You can stack crates to climb to a roof, you can throw healing potions at dying allies, you can talk your way out of almost any fight if you build for charisma. I saw a clip of someone killing the final boss by throwing a stuffed bear that was enchanted with a spell, and that is not a glitch. That is just how the systems interact. The voice acting is incredible. The story adapts to your choices so much that 2 playthroughs can be completely different, and the turn-based combat is tactical without being slow. My only complaint is that Act 3 is still a little messy performance-wise on some systems, but they have patched it a ton since launch. This is a landmark game, the kind that reminds you why you love the genre. If you have not played it, stop what you're doing right now and go buy it. Coming in next, we have Divinity Original Sin 2, Definitive Edition. Before Baldur's Gate 3 made Larian a household name, this was their masterpiece, and honestly, I still think some things are better here. The elemental interaction system is so much deeper. You can cast rain to make the ground wet, then cast lightning to shock everyone in the puddle, then cast fire to turn the water into steam that blocks vision, and then cast wind to blow the steam away. And you know, all of that works. The isometric view gives you perfect control of the battlefield, and the turn-based combat is ruthless. Every fight feels like a puzzle where positioning and surface effects matter more than your stats. And the Definitive Edition adds a full rework of the final act, new difficulty modes, and a split-screen co-op that works surprisingly well. Speaking of co-op, this is one of the best co-op RPGs ever made. You and 3 friends can all run off in different directions, talk to different NPCs, get into separate fights, and then come back together to share loot and argue about moral choices. The game does not care, it just works. The story is fine. Classic Chosen One stuff, but the characters are great, especially the Red Prince, who is a pompous lizard prince that talks like a British aristocrat. If you like tactical combat and systems that reward experimentation, this is still the gold standard, and it goes on sale constantly, so there is no excuse. And next on the list is Disco Elysium, the final cut. Alright, this is the weird one. There is no combat, like totally zero. You are a detective who has lost his memory due to a catastrophic bender, and you have to solve a murder in a rundown coastal district. The isometric perspective is used for walking around and talking to people, but the real game happens in your head. Your skills are voices that argue with each other. Like the inland empire that acts as your intuition, it whispers strange poetic things. Logic tries to reason. Half-light is pure violence and paranoia, and you can level them up in any order, which completely changes how conversations play out. One playthrough, you might be a physical brute who intimidates everyone. Another, you could be a sensitive art cop who notices the angle of a chair. The final cut adds full voice acting for every line of dialogue, which is thousands of lines, and it is incredible. The game is not about winning or losing, it is about failing forward. You can fail a check to open a door and then discover a different way in. You can have a heart attack trying to grab your tie from a ceiling fan. It is philosophical, political, sad, and hilarious all at once. I laughed out loud, and I also had to put the controller down and stare at the wall. There is nothing else like it. If you want explosions and stats, go play something else. If you want writing that makes you feel things, play Disco Elysium. Coming in next, we have Grim Dawn. So after Diablo III came out and a lot of people felt it was too colorful and too simple, a bunch of us went looking for something darker and more complex, and we found Grim Dawn. This is the ARPG for people who want to build a spreadsheet for fun. The dual class system means you can combine any 2 of the 9 classes, and the possible combinations are huge. Soldier plus Necromancer makes a Death Knight that summons skeletons and tanks with a shield. Occultist plus Shaman makes a Poison Caster with a pet Briar Thorn. You get the idea. The isometric viewpoint is standard for the genre, but the atmosphere is what sets Grim Dawn apart. The world is Lovecraftian industrial horror, all rusted metal, eldritch monsters, and haunted farmland. The soundtrack is grim and low-key, the quests are depressing, and the lore notes are actually worth reading. There is a new expansion, Fangs of Astrakarn, coming in the 23rd of July this year, which will add a new class and a new act set in a mountainous region. The game is still getting updates almost a decade after launch, which is insane loyalty from the developers. The biggest downside is the graphics. They were dated when the game came out, but if you do not care about that, you get hundreds of hours of loot grinding and build tinkering. This is the Diablo alternative that the purists swear by, and they are right. Another one that I think really worth a highlight is Diablo IV. And look, I know the launch was messy, the endgame was shallow, and everyone was mad, but here's the thing, after the Vessel of Hatred expansion and 4 seasons of patches, this is a completely different game now. Blizzard finally fixed the itemization. No more boring damage multipliers. Now you have actual interesting affixes that change how skills work. The new class, the Spiritborn, is ridiculously fun. A kind of agile monk that can use 4 different spirit animal powers at once. The isometric combat was always great. Weighty and visceral, with the best sound design in the genre. Smashing a pack of demons with a barbarian's hammer feels so good. The campaign is still solid, the cinematics are gorgeous, and the open world actually works now because there are things to do everywhere. The seasonal mechanics are much better. Season 4's Loot Reborn literally fixed the game's biggest problem. I was a hater at launch, I admit it, but I went back recently and put 40 hours into a seasonal character without getting bored. The endgame still has issues. It is not Path of Exile levels of depth, but for a casual action RPG you can pick up and play, Diablo IV is finally in a great spot. If you wrote it off after launch, give it another chance, it is worth it now. And up next we have Last Epoch. This is the ARPG that sits right in the middle of the difficulty spectrum, not as simple as Diablo, not as overwhelming as Path of Exile, and it finds that sweet spot perfectly. The isometric view is standard, but the time travel mechanic is what makes it unique. You go between different eras, the ruined future, the divine past, and your choices change which versions of zones you visit. The class system is deep. Each class has 3 masteries, and then each skill has its own talent tree. That is the key feature. Every active ability, from your basic melee swing to your biggest ultimate spell, has a tree that lets you modify it. Want Fireball to split into 3 smaller fireballs and leave burning ground? You can do that. Want your skeleton summons to turn into archers that shoot poison arrows? Go ahead. The crafting system is also great, deterministic, and not too random. You can actually plan out your gear. The game is fully released now, out of early access. And the endgame is solid with dungeons, arenas, and a monolith system similar to Path of Exile's maps. It is not as polished as Diablo IV, and the multiplayer was rough at launch, but the solo experience is excellent. If you want an ARPG that respects your time and gives you real build options without requiring a PhD, Last Epoch is your game. So next up, it's No Rest for the Wicked. And this one is a surprise because it is from the developers of Ori and the Blind Forest, and those are platformers, not action RPGs. But they brought their art style, which is this gorgeous, painterly 3D look, and applied it to a Souls-like isometric game. The combat is slow and weighty, you have stamina, you have to time your dodges, and every enemy is a threat. The isometric camera makes it feel different from a standard third-person Souls game. You have to think about your positioning in a 360-degree way. There is a hub town that you rebuild over time, a fishing system, farming, and a lot of resource management. The game is in early access right now, and there is not a ton of content yet, maybe 15 to 20 hours, but what is there is incredibly high quality. The art direction alone is worth the price. The animations are fluid, the enemy designs are grotesque in a beautiful way, and the music is haunting. The developers are adding a big update in early 2025 with a new zone, new weapons, and a co-op mode. The biggest criticism is that the loot feels underwhelming right now, too many junk drops, but that is the kind of thing early access is for. If you are willing to play an unfinished game that looks like a painting and fights like a dream, get this now. If you want a complete experience, wait a few months. Either way, keep it on your radar. And next on the list we have Hades 2. Alright, Supergiant did the impossible. They made a sequel to a perfect game, and it is already incredible in early access. You play as Melinoe, the princess of the underworld, and her moveset is completely different from Zagreus. She has magical attacks that use a resource called mana, so you have to manage your resources differently. The isometric perspective returns, but the levels are bigger and more vertical, with ledges you can jump down and environmental traps everywhere. The new weapons are fantastic. The witch's staff shoots projectiles, the sister blades are fast melee, and the skull is a weird mortar launcher. The cast of Greek gods is expanded. You have Apollo, Hera, and new characters, and the voice acting is just as good as the first game. The story picks up after the first game, with Kronos the Titan of Time escaping and imprisoning Hades. It is a revenge quest with time travel elements, and now that this game has officially launched, you can now complete the full game, since all zones, as well as game's major routes, are all completely finished. If you like the first Hades, buy this immediately. If you have not played the first Hades, start there, then come back. This is shaping up to be another masterpiece. And finally, let's talk about Path of Exile 2. This is the big one. Grinding Gear Games launched this into early access in 2024, and the hype was insane for a reason. It is not an expansion, it is a full sequel with a completely new 7-act campaign, a new skill gem system that is way more intuitive, and a dodge roll mechanic that changes the entire feel of combat. The isometric camera is still there, but the game is slower and more methodical. You cannot just blow up the whole screen anymore. You have to dodge telegraphed attacks, manage your positioning, and actually respect enemy mechanics. It feels like a Dark Souls ARPG hybrid, and I mean that as a compliment. The graphics are a huge step up, the environments are gorgeous, and the boss fights are genuinely challenging and cinematic. The early access has 6 of the 12 character classes, and each one has 3 ascendancies. The passive tree is still massive, but it is easier to navigate now. The biggest controversy is that the endgame is currently a bit shallow compared to the original Path of Exile, which had a decade of content, and some hardcore fans are worried that the slower combat makes it less replayable. But I don't think that's going to happen, because even in early access, Path of Exile 2 is already one of the best action RPGs ever made. It is going to be huge. Get in now and watch it grow. But that's all for today. If you enjoyed watching this video, click like, and if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.